I was always treated horribly by my family, and then all of a sudden, once they forgot about me, they discovered that I was doing really well for myself. And then they just show up out of the blue, requesting one of the most absurd things ever. I'm 33, male. I was the golden child of my family. I'm the first of 3 children, and my parents, despite earning slightly below average, did everything they could so that I would get a good education. I was smarter than the rest of my siblings and did well in school. My sister Morgan was into acting, but my parents did not think that it would amount to anything, so they never really supported her dream. My brother, Gabriel, well, he had never been the serious type. It was so wonder why my parents decided to place all their focus on me, though I really wish that they would pay Morgan more attention. I have a suspicion she became rebellious because my parents' neglect. I developed a liking for technology after watching some people code on YouTube, and when I was done with high school, I had made up my mind to study any program that involved computer science. To my dismay, my parents informed me that they had saved up for medical school. I tried talking to them about my disinterest in medicine. The thoughts of studying a program for 6 years and more was unappealing to me. Then there were stories I heard and the money that was to be spent on my schooling. Nothing I said changed my parents' minds, and after some sit-downs and urging, I decided to listen to them. It was a lucrative career, yes, and I had the brains for it. Besides, my family had done so much for me. Back then, I believed that they pushed me into medicine because they thought that was what was best for me. I managed to get through the first 3 years of medical school until I realized I can't continue with medicine. I thought that I was good enough and even got into it when I was done with high school, but it became too difficult. Despite all the late nights, all the hard work, I kept falling behind and doing just above average. I've been close to failing 2 classes, and at some point I gave up. I felt like a burden was lifted off my shoulders when I withdrew from school and went home. Planning to have a discussion with my parents, I thought they would listen to help me, and well, with whatever plans I've made since then. After all, I had listened to them and tried out medicine, which turned out to be a serious waste of everybody's time. At 22, I felt the full brunt of my parents' anger for the first time. They refused to listen to a single thing that I said and kept telling me to go back to school. When it was clear to them that I was going to be disobedient in their eye, I had turned to an ingrate in the eyes of my parents. They refused to fund my school anymore, since I did not do as they pleased, and one time my dad told me that I was going to pay back every dime that he invested in my education. My siblings were no better. My sister told me that I was her ticket to acting, and that I was selfish enough to drop out. My brother never really respected me for some reason, and me living in the same space as him again made room for more disrespect. For years, I tolerated the jest and insults thrown at me by my family. They were upset about my decision, but they don't know how much pain their actions caused me. I did everything to appease them and tolerated everything, but later on I realized it was all in vain. The only thing I could possibly do to redeem myself was to go back to medical school, and that was never going to happen. It was a nightmare for me. My home had become a nightmare as well, but at least no money was being spent on me anymore. One time my uncle came. It was about a year after I dropped out, and he was quite surprised to see me. The news shocked him as well, and I had disappointed another family member. My parents made sure to remind me of my uncle's reaction at every chance they got after his visit. Worse still, my parents had decided to put Morgan through university. She was going to study a course that would put food on the table, or so my mother said. It was another reason for my sister to hate me. I swallowed all the hostility that came from her, though. When I was 26, I left the family. They had a huge role to play in it. They kicked me out because I was of no use to them. I'd been working at the supermarket close by to take care of my own needs at home. Initially, I tried learning a tech skill and ended up wasting my time because my family was against it. They believed that my passion had brainwashed me, and after so many failed attempts at getting a job with the little tech skills that I had then, I gave up. My leaving my childhood home was inevitable. Lucky friend of mine, Philip, from high school. He took me in. He came to the store some years after I became a dropout and was shocked to see me working there. And after I've told him everything, he sympathized with me. I stayed with him sometimes when things at home weren't favorable for me. I was grateful when he let me live with him. And he's one of the reasons I'm where I'm at today. He pushed me to chase my love of technology despite my initial discouragement and supported me whenever I decided not to go for it. Now, I'm employed with a better than average salary. I also run a successful YouTube channel, and I'm a tech coach, among other things. I moved out of Philip's place a few months ago, but we're still as close as ever. I've been living a very predictable life until my sister called yesterday, out of the blue. I'm not sure how she got my number. She sounded the same, only a bit more mature than the teenage voice I remembered. Apparently, there's an emergency at my home. I have not been there since, and nothing, left, and I'm feeling these mixed feelings. Philip is against it, though. He believes nothing good will come out of meeting my family. I didn't tell him I was going, partly out of curiosity. I'll be paying them a visit tomorrow, and I honestly hope I don't regret my decision. Update number 1. I also saw Gabriel a few days ago. He's taller than I am, but his attitude is the exact same as I remember. I'd gone home again to check how my family was doing, and he happened to be around. He was rude as soon as he saw me, telling me everything was fine and that I should go back home. I could not understand my brother's dislike for me, and I helped him with everything I could when we were younger, and now I was helping out with his fees, so why? I tried engaging him in a simple conversation, but he had better things to do and left. My mom was the only other person around when I went to see my family. I talked to her about Gabriel, and she told me to ignore it, which was more annoying than comforting, but anyways. She also brought up the topic of rent, and I started to doubt myself. I just reconnected with my family, yet they were asking me to pay for every single thing. No matter how much I tried to see things from their perspective, it was not right for me. I complained to my mom, and she apologized, saying that she was desperate. Hearing sorry from her did me in. My parents really weren't the type to apologize, so I promised to send my next paycheck to help out with the rent. Philip gave me a call yesterday and said that he simply wanted to check up on me, and we went out for some drinks. I apologized for the way I said things to him, knowing he would forgive me immediately, but when I tried bringing up my family, he told me that he was not interested in hearing anything about them. He didn't want us to get into another argument, and he did not support the decision I was making. I couldn't sleep well last night because my thoughts didn't let me. My mom said that she was desperate and I had a duty as her son to help her. But why was Philip so against me helping my family? He's always supported me in my decisions, even when my own family didn't. I did not like that my family had become a bone of contention between my friend and I. At the same time, I was not going to be at peace knowing that I could help my family and not do it. They changed. I could see it. And I was not going to make the same mistake that they did by not being there for them. Update number 2. I'll be going to visit my family later today. I need to have a discussion with them because with the rate at which things are going, I would have to dip my hands into my personal savings, something I had promised not to do until after marriage. This morning, my bank statement shocked me. Had I sent so much to my family without thinking about the consequences? The money I had left wasn't even enough to pay my rent anymore, and it's all because of my family's constant demands. I'm sure I mentioned Gabriel's schooling. That happened about 2 months ago, alongside the rent issue. I thought that was it, that I wasn't paying for anything major anymore, but Morgan decided to mess with me as well. My younger sister had borrowed a huge amount of money and had given her lender my details, saying I would settle everything. It was a pretty substantial amount, and when I asked why she did something like that without consulting me first, she said I was only one that she thought of. It was vexing, but I could get myself out of the situation easily, so I did not make it a huge issue. It was going to be a problem for her later on, but that wasn't my problem. She was a grown adult, and for God's sake, she should have been smarter with her actions. 3 days ago, I sat down to do some thinking, and things were getting out of hand, and I was constantly worried, which was affecting my performance at work. I thought of increasing the prices for my services, but decided against it. I didn't know if that would become a solution or bring more problems. My parents had called me then, joking about a vacation that I was most likely going to sponsor, and I told them I was currently low on funds, but I must be talking to myself because they mentioned doing some research on inexpensive countries in Africa. Philip was quiet when I told him everything 2 days ago. He then told me that a similar thing had happened to his mom years ago. She had called him and asked for a number of things, despite knowing that he had estranged his family. I never did know why Philip wasn't on good terms with his family. Nor did I ask. I felt he would tell me when and if he wanted to. Philip advised me to cut them off as soon as I could because they would only keep asking for stuff, not caring about the toll it's taking on me. I talked about my family seeming to have changed, only realizing why that was when I was done. Their attitude towards me was different now because I could provide what they wanted. It was a painful realization, and I called the one person that I knew would tell me the truth because they still treated me the exact same way. My call with Gabriel confirmed my suspicions. I learned why my brother did not like me after the call. When I told him my suspicions, he was surprised that I had only just figured it out. He told me that as soon as Morgan had informed everybody of my success, our parents had called him for a discussion. Gabriel had planned to take gap years and then attend a cheap university, but my parents had changed his plans. Another thing he was upset about. Gabriel had figured out why my family had welcomed me back with open arms ever before I even paid my first visit, and gave the same advice Philip did. When I asked why he always seemed to dislike me, he told me that my parents never paid him any attention because of me, and now they were only paying attention to him because of me as well, and it hurt me to hear this. And when I asked if I could do anything to make our relationship better, Gabriel told me just to forget it before ending the call. I'll talk to Philip about this later, but for now I'll leave my brother alone. He has some issues to work out, and I'm sure that he would not want me to interfere despite my good intentions. I told my parents I was going over to see them because I needed them to both be home. I called Morgan and told her to be present as well. Gabriel was in school, and this didn't really concern him anyways. Besides, we had already settled things between us. I was finally going to speak my mind and lay some boundaries, and I would not care what my family thought of me afterwards. Update number 3. I walked out on my family this time, and this time they did, all the begging. It was a nice change, though I wish things had ended differently, but after the numerous fights and calls during and after my visit, I knew that this was the best decision I could have made for myself as a person. When I told my parents I wanted to talk to them, they assumed it was because of the vacation that they planned to take. For some reason, I told them that I had no plans to pay for a vacation for anyone, and my dad told me he understood how hard it was for me to provide for the entire family and myself. For a minute, I thought he would understand my plight, but when he started talking about postponing the trip, I lost it. I told my parents and sister that I was not going to help them out with their wants anymore because I was a human being with needs as well. When I informed Morgan that I was not going to be her guarantee payment of her loan, she began to insult me, calling me selfish and saying that I had not changed. In a short while, my parents joined and I was speechless. Were these really the same people I was ready to do anything for just a few months ago? They were the same people who kicked me out of the house years ago, and I got mad at myself and left the house promising to never make such a mistake again. The first phone call happened early the next day. My phone had been ringing nonstop since I left my family house, and all their yelling. I had to turn it off for my own peace of mind, because I was in such a sour mood. I took Morgan's call and was shocked to hear her beg me to help her out with the loan that she's taken. Was she only putting on an act earlier? Or was my sister insane? I tried explaining that I was in no position to spend any more money, especially not on her, and ended the call while she begged. She called again, but I didn't answer. Morgan then switched to texting, and there was a text saying that she would pay me back as soon as she could. I almost laughed at it. Desperation can make people say some ridiculous things. My mom called next. About 2 days later, she told me to come over and have a discussion with her and Dad after a few pleas from her. I agreed and went to see them after work. My dad told me that he never should have placed a financial burden on me, then proceeded to say that I should have understood since it was my responsibility as the first child, just to take care of them. It took a lot not to storm out of the house after that statement. My mom sided with him, reminding me of all the money that they had put into my future when I was younger. When my dad said I should not forget about the family had taken me back after I betrayed them by dropping out, I stopped him. I reminded him that he had kicked me out without caring how I fared. I reminded him that I had begged to go out after my passion. I then asked if they would have taken me back if I had not been successful. Their initial silence was the answer I needed. I told my parents that this was the last time that I would be stepping foot in my childhood home, and I left. My mom called again the day after my visit. She asked me to forgive her and my father. I told her not to bother begging me before I ended the call. My mind was made up, but it was harder than I thought to get rid of my pain. Philip had traveled out of state, so there's no one else to talk to. The only momentary joy I'd gotten during this period was a new job offer. I'd been applying to a few new companies, hoping for a change of scenery and a better pay, and I'm not sure I'm going to take it, and I don't want to make decisions in the state that I'm in right now. Then there's the text Gabriel sent me. He was paying my family a visit over the weekend and wanted to meet up. I'm curious and suspicious. This is the first time Gabriel seems to want to spend time with me, and there's a chance my parents put him up to this. Then he might genuinely want to talk to me, but why? What do you guys think? Update number 4. I traveled out of the state a few weeks ago. I had 2 job interviews and will be relocating soon because I'm working with a new firm. I haven't heard from my parents since I left my family house, and Morgan stopped calling when she realized I was not going back on my decision to help her out. I hope this sort of the mess that she put herself in gets sorted, but like I said, it's really not my problem if she doesn't get it sorted. I spoke with Gabriel before I traveled out. He told me that Morgan had told him everything and that he respected my decision. When I asked why he wanted to see me, Gabriel told me not to help out with his fees either. He had some savings that would cover his second year and was working on earning the rest of his tuition. I don't know why, but I felt a sense of pride alongside with the usual sadness I felt when talking to Gabriel. Perhaps it was because he was taking charge of his life at a young age, something the rest of the family refused to do. It was a bit silly, especially since he had somebody to help him, but I respect his decision and told him so. He was happy with my answer and left my home, wishing me all the best. I wish I had a better relationship with my bro, honestly. We would have been good friends, but that won't happen until Gabriel's willing to accept me. I guess I understand his pain. I enjoyed being the golden child, truthfully. The attention made me happy, but I made a mistake by failing to see what it did to my siblings. Philip called me 2 days ago. We've caught up on each other's lives since I traveled, and he told me that he's seeing somebody now. Philip also told me that Gabriel was working at a mechanic's during his break. It was nice to know that my younger brother was doing okay. I told Philip I would pay him a visit once I settled down, and I would use that opportunity to see Gabriel. It won't happen immediately, but I plan to fix my relationship with him, even if it's by a little bit. So there was one interesting comment that I came across for this story. They were pointing out how, yeah, it's tragic that OP and the family that he doesn't have anymore, they could have maybe made this work somehow, but the biggest regret, according to this comment, was Gabriel. A lot of people were saying how Gabriel and OP didn't even have the chance to get close. Gabriel despised OP because of the way that he was treated by his family. I want to know your thoughts on that. Do you think it's possible for OP and Gabriel to have a relationship in the future? Drop your comments down below. Let's talk about that. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories every single day. Drama stories, could be inheritance dramas, mother-in-law disputes, wedding fiascos. I have a wedding fiasco story coming out this week that is so insane. You're not going to want to miss that one, guys. I'll see you tomorrow, but remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.